This is Egan. I share transformational tools and then I show you how to use them. All right. This will be a very interesting topic. You create your reality 100%. Now, when we get into metaphysics or spirituality or we hear about the law of attraction, we get really excited because we're like, wow, I can now create all the good stuff that I want and get rid of all the bad stuff. You know, I can really exercise my power, and it's very intoxicating. I know when I first heard about this idea, really understood it. I heard about the law of attraction actually when I was a teenager, but I didn't really dig deeper into it until I was 19, 20, something like that. We get very excited with the idea, you know, to be that powerful, to be omnipotent. And so we begin to examine, you know, what we're creating in our lives and how we can make things better and, you know, what can we do? It's like a little kid going to a playground. Let's jump into the sandbox and mix it up. But along with that comes a peculiar challenge, which is that we will tend, with the law of attraction, to take credit for the good stuff. And then the bad stuff, we're like, well, you know, that really wasn't me. You know, that was, you know, I'm not sure what that was, but I'm not really creating that. I'm creating the good stuff. And so sometimes we try to avoid the shadow or things in our life that aren't working. And that's a shame because there's a lot to learn from that. You want to learn from all of your creations because that will help you make better creations and being a better creator. I'll tell a story about that to illustrate this point because I don't want people when they're watching my channel to think I'm somehow perfect, although I'm pretty close. But I want you to see me as a real person who's had to examine their actions. I do this all the time, and to become a better person, but also a better creator, more responsible. We have an infinite amount of power at our disposal, and so you want to use it with wisdom. And part of that wisdom is taking responsibility for what you're creating. So I want to go back many, many years ago, in my early 20s. I was in a very peculiar stage in my life. This was after the first couple of years I had taken a deep dive into spirituality and metaphysics and had really opened up my consciousness in ways that were pretty cosmic. And what happened is that after that period, I went through like a dark period, a shadow period. I kind of hit a peak, and then I was like, well, I don't know where else to go. And I ended up moving back from New York City, where I've been living, back to Florida. And I decided that after all the spiritual growth, I was going to get more into the physical world. I had become a little bit detached from the material world and life and, you know, relationships and that sort of thing. I said, you know, I got to get back in the swing of things. I have to socialize better. I've got to try to adapt to being with other people because I'd spent a lot of time alone in my spiritual search. I said, all right, let's get back in there. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I ended up getting into bodybuilding. So at that time, I weighed about 140 pounds. So I was very skinny. I'm 6 feet tall, so I was tall but very thin. And I said, you know what? I've got to gain weight and I've got to gain muscle. So I got heavily into bodybuilding. I went in a couple of months from 140 pounds to 170 pounds, and it was all muscle. So I was working out intently, had a workout partner, was almost force-feeding myself food to bulk up. This is a real thing. I got really obsessed by this, fascinated by it. I had never really been physically, you know, strong in my life, physically athletic anyway. So this was my big, you know, transformation, a physical transformation, if we're talking about transforming yourself. So anyway, I was, you know, bulking up and I could feel more testosterone, and I was also drinking a lot. I'm not a big drinker these days, but in those days I was drinking quite a bit of alcohol. And I noticed that I was getting a little bit pugilistic. I was getting a little bit full of myself and antagonistic with people at times. Not getting in huge fights or anything, but I would, you know, say things to people or or challenge people. And it just that so much new power and energy was coursing through my body that I was, I was feeling myself and express myself in ways I'd never been able to do before. And it was a learning process. So what did this create? Well, I was creating a little bit of antagonism with people, and lo and behold, at that time I was kind of living in a sketchy neighborhood. One night after dark, I said, you know what, I'm going to walk over from my condo that I share with my roommate. I'm going to go to the 7-Eleven. I'm going to get something to eat or do something. So I started walking, it was, I don't know, probably like half a mile or something. And, I was walking. And about halfway to the 7-Eleven, I was walking next to a park, and a car passed by me. It had like teenagers inside of it, and they were like jeering at me and, yelling at me or something. And they kind of just passed me by and then went down the corner and disappeared. And I thought, okay, well, that was, weird, but I'll keep walking. Well, I think another 15 feet I was walking, and suddenly, way in the distance, around the chain link fence, I saw somebody come around and start walking towards me, a teenager. And so I was like, okay, teenager's coming towards me. Got to keep walking to the 7-Eleven. 5 feet after him, another one showed up. And then another one. And so literally by the time the first one was right near me, I could also see 4 of them coming at me, spaced apart. So I got a little bit alarmed. The first one passed me. And then the next one came along, and I'll never forget this. He just swung his arm and caught me right in the throat. And literally within seconds, they were all on me. I could feel one of them grabbing for my wallet. Another one was trying to hold me down. And I knew I was in deep doo-doo. I had to do something. Now, remember, I had just gained all this weight, this muscle mass. I could bench over 400 pounds at that time. I mean, I was in great shape. I had been getting a little bit cocky, a little bit aggressive, the adrenaline, the testosterone. So in that moment, I had to get out of that situation. Now, you would think that I would fight, but that's not what happened. In that moment, I screamed. I think I screamed like a little girl. I was like, ah! It was kind of like almost like a movie, say like all those old time movies where like the people are like on the roller coaster or something dramatic happens and they look at each other like, ah! So I started screaming like a little girl. And what happened is that these teenagers got so freaked out, they all just ran away because I was so loud. They didn't even have to fight. I never even threw a punch. And they dispersed. They ran back to their car. I ran to the 7-Eleven, and I was safe. Now, why am I telling this story? Let's go back to the topic. You create your reality 100%. So, after the shock and after I got back home, I actually called the police and they drove me back home. And after that whole thing that happened, even though it was very early in my metaphysical career, I had to stop and I had to ask myself the important question. How did I create this reality? You see, when people come to me and they're telling me about something that's happening in their life, they're complaining about something or something they want to change, I'll often find sometimes I actually often find myself saying or repeating what one of my mentors taught me, which was, things don't happen to you, they happen from you. And what that teacher communicated to me was, you create your reality 100%. So when something happens in your life, you can say, well, this person did this and that person did that, but the real golden question to ask is, what was I putting out that was creating this? How did I create this? And so when I just thought about it for a few minutes, it was very obvious. I had been putting out a lot of aggressive energy with people because of the bodybuilding. And so what had happened was, the universe gave me a message back that if you put that out, if you put that aggression out, it will come back to you. And so in a way, I was grateful that I wasn't harmed. I was grateful for the lesson, and I calmed down. I still did the bodybuilding, still was working out, still went to the gym. I do it to this day. But I never had the same attitude about being overly aggressive in that way, of really being antagonistic with people. I have my days when I get irritated with people, but not in that way when I was in my early 20s for that period of time. And so in a way, it was a blessing that it happened, because I got to see the instant reflection of what I was putting out, and it was coming back to me. And so you always create your reality 100% in one way or another. A thought goes out, an emotion goes out, an idea. You may have set something up from a previous lifetime with somebody. You put something out that has been sent out into the universe and is coming back to you. So, with that in mind, whether you agree or not about the 100%, some people think they only create it 90% of the time. That's fine. Let's do a process. I want you to think of something. Close your eyes for a second. I want you to think of something that's in your life that you're not too thrilled about. Could be something that happened to you, a relationship, a challenge you have, a problem. And step number one is I just want you to be 100% honest with how you feel about it. You may be irritated, you may be fearful, you may be frustrated. Just be honest with yourself. How do you actually feel about this situation that you have in your life? Okay. Number two, ask yourself, am I in some way creating this? Is this coming from me? And perhaps, although I might like to say that this is happening to me, is it coming from me? Is there a thought? Is there a pattern that I have, a belief that would attract this into my life? And just allow whatever comes up to be perfect for you. What is the cause? Is there some source here? Maybe it even repeats something that you've done in the past or experienced in the past with other people, pointing out to a belief system that you have that's attracting this. Okay. Number three. Ask yourself, how is this helping me? Is this actually helpful in some way? What am I learning from this situation? Is it pointing out something that I have to address or change? What if this situation or this pattern or this relationship was actually helping me to learn something, to empower me in some way? I already know what I feel about it. I've been honest about that. Maybe I can trace back why I created it or attracted it, but even if I don't know the source of it, is it showing me something? And it may just be showing you how to change an attitude or a belief or to act differently towards somebody. Okay. So when people ask about transforming their lives, maybe they want to do a fancy meditation or go hang out with a guru or something, but really, all of our life experiences are opportunities for transformation. You do create your reality 100%. May not always like it, may not always understand it, but you can use everything for your growth. So then my suggestion is the next time something happens that's unpleasant, Go through these steps. Be honest how you feel. Ask yourself, is this happening from me in some way? And is it helpful? And if you do that, you can transform it, and you will transform yourself and your experience, and then you will create something new that will probably be more beneficial and more joyful for you. And that's how you transform your life, by transforming your consciousness. Thank you for creating me in your reality. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video. And I will see you in the next one.